every time I play Mario Kart 8. Excitement each time I reach the finish line when I'm fighting neck and neck for first, frustration every time I'm knocked out of the air by a red shell, and insatiable bloodlust when I'm dominating other players in battle mode, and an unbridled satisfaction every time I win. On the other hand, once I've stopped playing and given myself a chance to settle, it's then that I start to think about the problems that plague this game for nitpicky assholes like myself. But let's start with the positive. This game looks damn good, but any video about Mario Kart 8 will tell you that.
It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life!
This game has that layered subtlety that Nintendo's known for, adding the smallest details that you won't notice until the 5th time around, or the 10th or the 50th. All of the subtle details in the graphics, such as the dirt, sand, and snow that collect onto your tires, how all the characters around you jump as you honk your horn, seeing the lights turn on as it gets dark on the globe in the online menu, the skid marks that are left behind on the track, it all feels like Nintendo put a lot of thought into the ideas that are no longer off limits thanks to its HD hardware. All of the detail in each texture really helps to add life to and flesh out the Mario world. The subtleties carry over into the track design as well. The shortcuts are placed so organically you might not notice them at all. I didn't notice a shortcut in Mount Wario until I saw it in a YouTube video. The less subtle shortcuts seem to take a cue from Papu's Pyramid, like the ones in Cloud Top Cruise and Thwomp Ruins. This is one of the ways the game demonstrates its emphasis on replayability. The combination of all the hidden shortcuts, the multiple paths on some of the tracks, and the bevy of car customization options combined create a substantially different racing experience each time you play. It's also become more difficult to create the perfect combination. In Mario Kart 7, people have found a couple of definitive combinations that had high stats all across the board. In this game, however, I've had much more trouble finding the combination that has great stats all around and is great on every track because, well, there isn't one. And in that absence comes a more diverse and dynamic experience. The amount of collectible parts also has me hooked because I like collecting shit. I also commend this game's efforts to make a faster, more fluid experience. The entire genre is about a dedication to speed, and Nintendo reflects this by making the karts slightly faster, placing a higher emphasis on creating bumps to boost off of, and having a much quicker recovery time when you fall off an edge. The few modes this game has, it gets right mostly. Time trial is fast, hard to beat times, and even if you beat them, you can still download ghost saves from faster players. The online play in general makes me think that this is where the bulk of the development time went. The Smash Brothers sized amount of versus rules you can set in the tournaments, the fluid, solid online races that almost never disconnect, and even so much as the detailed globe on the menu that I could stare at for hours. All showed that Nintendo's out of its dark ages, so to speak, as it's finally embracing the importance of online play. But what about the oft-criticized battle mode?
The battle mode in the old games, like on Super Nintendo and N64, were done correctly.
Without arena-style tracks, it's lame.
The hell did they do to the battle mode?
They completely fucked it up this time.
It's literally ruined one of my favourite modes.
This is easily my least favorite battle mode.
What were you thinking?
My first few tries, I hated it. I thought you'd be driving around the track, never being able to find anyone. Then I realized that wasn't true at all. It's very easy to find other people, and I started to enjoy it just as much as its predecessors. You now battle on 8 of the racetracks in the game rather than specifically designed battle arenas, which initially sounds like a bad idea, but in retrospect, you can tell that these tracks were built with that idea in mind. Even in the retro tracks, there are plenty of holes and crevices you can hide in, and I commend Nintendo for taking battle mode in such a bold direction. You know, it's kinda nice to see a decade-and-a-half old formula get an upgrade. Speaking of dumb shit dumb people bitch about, how about that character roster, huh? Well, here's the thing, there are essentially 3 types of characters in this 30-character roster. The beginner, the small, slow-moving lightweights who turn well, average, the all-around character, and advanced, the heavier characters who have god-awful turning but they blow everyone away in their dust. My favorite character is Dry Bones, but based on other characters who are his size like Lakitu and Koopa, he'd be a lightweight who's as slow as anything else that's dead, whereas the best characters for me to play as are heavy and fast. My point is, your favorite character you can't play as probably has shit stats anyways. It's not about what still-face mascot occupies the seat of your cart, it's about the cart's stats, and your skills using said stats. The last on the list of things that crybabies complain about is the one-item limit.
Another thing you cannot do in this game is hold a shell like you could in the older Mario Karts. Remember in the older Mario Karts when you could hold a shell and it would clear the item slot? Notice how when I did that red shell, when I use the red shell and when I use other items in the game, such as the green shell, when I hold them behind me, it stays in the item slot, so you cannot pick up another item like you could in older Mario Karts.
It's the high knock life.
In previous installments, one could hold an item behind them and proceed to pick up another one, meaning you could protect yourself from getting hit while having a second item ready to attack with or replace your defense. Mario Kart 8 changes that. When you hold an item behind you, it now remains in your item box, meaning you can't pick up another one until you use the item you're currently holding. This elicits the reaction of worrying whether you should keep your current item to keep your current defense, or if you dare risk it in hopes of getting a better item. It adds another subtle layer to the strategy, which is a plus in my book, but it also means that item handling now works like every other kart racer. Sadly, this was also the worst game in the franchise to implement it in. Previous Mario Kart games had rubber band AI, which made it so other racers could keep up with you on higher difficulties no matter how well you're playing. Sure, the rubber banding may be more broken than Obama's promises, but I like a good challenge. However, this game dropped it for some stupid reason and replaced it with having the CPU characters wail away at you with comical amounts of items until you go from 1st to 6th. I'd look back to not a CPU character in sight, the finish line is just in front of me, and then I'm hit with 2, 3, 4 red shells in a row, knocking me back to 4th, 6th, even 8th in some instances, causing me to have to redo the cup so I can get that 3-star ranking. And you know something? This is the first Mario Kart game where I feel cheated when I lose.
Asgard! No! Please!
In every prior installment, I always felt that my losses were my own fault and that would increase my drive to try again. But this game constantly robs me without giving a fraction of a fuck. And considering the majority of my online experiences end with me in first place by a mile as I back up into the finish line, I get a sneaking suspicion that there isn't an issue on my end. The other major problem I have with this game that nobody else seems to have, so maybe I'm just a nitpicky asshole, is where the fuck are the modes? Like I said, the few modes this game has, it nails them, but guys, it's been 18 years since Mario Kart 64, and with the exception of online, there's nary a new mode in sight. Remember Mario Kart DS released in 2005? 9 years ago with 2 battle modes and a mission mode? Why does a game that's a decade old for a portable system have more modes than its home console successor on a 25GB disc? Why not throw in an adventure mode like Diddy Kong Racing, or just a little something extra to keep it a little more replayable? Here's a question: why is it that Mario Kart 8 just came out yet I still want to play Crash Team Racing? Let me answer that question with another question. Why does a 15-year-old PS1 game with less tracks and less characters utilize its mechanics better than the goddamn face of video games? And don't even pretend the anti-gravity adds this huge layer of depth. The anti-gravity looks cool as hell, don't get me wrong. I got giddy the first time I saw that everything in front of me was upside down, but it's really only an aesthetic change. It's not the magic formula Mario Kart 8 needs to be forever exempt from stagnation. I just expected that Mario Kart 8 would have retooled its mechanics and learned a lesson from better kart racers. I suppose I also expected that Mario Kart 8 would have more features than, or as many features as its predecessor, not less. You know, call me crazy. I suppose Mario Kart 8 isn't really about that though. It's more about taking the elements that made Mario Kart 7 great and building upon them. I also want to quickly commend Nintendo for including my favorite Mario Kart track, but despite the abstraction of content and the cheap AI in the single player modes, this game is still a load of fun, especially online. Final verdict?
Give it a whirl!